All right, good morning, everyone. Again, we tried to do a little tweak this week with like that calendar link. I was talking with Heaven about it before we started this. And I'm going to try to figure out a way where if you do sign up, you don't have to do it every single week, that it'll just be kind of recurring. But that I'll have to figure that out. But that is just something to make it easier for everyone who wants to attend these going forward. Trying to make it easy as possible for everyone. So with that, we'll get into a quick, big picture broad market outlook. We'll go over some top ideas. As well as ideas as well. So last week, sector-wise, we saw the utilities break out to new all-time highs. For now, we just want to continue to hold and add to these utility names. Like we saw like DUK breaking out as well. Energy continues to be strong. I'm actually pretty surprised how quickly it kind of just reversed that entire little pullback at from this major resistance level that's been setting up for a couple of years now. And just a bit here. Now that we're finally poking up to this resistance level, the often seems to be higher again. We're extremely extended for the sector, but again, it's clearly we can expect these little pullbacks and then these moves higher. Really, the next goal is to kind of hold for this retest of the all-time highs, which 40% from here, could get there in some time. We had a very strong week out of the markets last week, but we do just want to be aware that after we've had these very easy week or two where it just grinds up every single day, and now we're kind of dead smack in the middle of this range. When we're down here, everything feels horrible, that the world's going to end, and then when things start getting up here, everything's a buy, and we want to be fully long anything we can buy, but it's hard when you start to get up in the dead smack area of the range, because it's hard to expect just this continued follow through, like right back to these highs, where you have good stock. This is the time to have to and trail it. And for now, this little pivot seems to be like our kind of line in the sand, where if we continue to push higher, that's great. Down through this little pivot low, we'll probably get back into this range. But just be aware that fifth, sixth, seventh day up when everything looks amazing, that's more defense time than trying to like blow the boat or like chase things if you missed ideas. And especially for last week, CIVI was a big one. And if you missed this one, it's hard to expect the next idea to then replicate this type of action day one. So that's where you just want to be a little more cautious going into the week. Just excited to just put risk on because things have, were heating up the last week. Mid-cap and small caps still facing pretty nicely. Even myself included, I kind of thought we were going to break down through this in time, but for now it seems that we're still in this base. Biotech still pretty weak broadly in this downtrend, but we can see on a short time frame that this more micro downtrend has started to break, and maybe we do start to finally base out here and go way higher. And the REIT sector is still setting up. Even for, you might have noticed the last week's shakedown, for example, a lot of Shake's ideas were all, or majority of them were REIT names. If you look through, the 70 names on that list, there's probably about 25 of them that were all, REIT type of stocks. And we can see here, the REIT sector is still, kind of basing out nicely as we prepare for this kind of 108 breakout through through this level for the sector itself. The weakest sector clearly still is to be telecom. Again, we don't really trade those names other than maybe Verizon. Very slow mover, so it's not really a big concern for us, but just still very clearly in this downtrend. It hasn't started to break out of this or base yet. Two swings for me, again, a lot of the other end as well. In this CIVI, my goal is to start taking some profits up here, kind of in this 70 area, just based off this recent, this measured move of this part of the flag, and then broader, this 15-point, bigger range that probably sends it to 75 in time. But with a 10% day on Friday, it's going to be kind of hard to really expect like a bullish engulfing day today after that kind of action, because think of the person who would be trying to buy this name today is probably someone just chasing. It's not going to be like a smarter investor. And again, same with the UK. Just in this target right now is this 112, and then stop versus this 104. Utility name talked about before being strong. Energy name, sector being strong. So again, if we can focus on what's strong, the strongest sectors, then finding the best charts, that's going to be the easiest route for us. Some top ideas for myself going into this week. This WAB, this area, just been flagging for a few months now, and we can see, little pivot here, a couple dollars risk, and this EPS, it's been setting up for almost a year now. And this very big, big flag here. It doesn't really feel as much like a topping pattern, just because we continue to see these higher lows, like these buyers stepping up, where with a lot of the bases or topping patterns that we saw in the past that were breaking down, we were seeing them, the support and resistance area being much more horizontal, that they were coming down and testing, say, this 180 much more significantly in this range and then breaking lower, or we're not really seeing that with UPS. So that's why I'm just trying to keep this one on the radar. I'm still in this one from last year or almost a year ago, and looking to add this 220 in time. One of the radars is CTSH, just banging on this resistance, on this all-time high level. And, it kind of took it out a little bit. Maybe it might not be ready this week, but up through 92 in time versus, this 90 could be a tight little trade, just to, take it through highs. I did take a few ideas off of the shakedown that we can go over really quick. This FRT from last week, again, a REIT name, still basing up to this 120. This THC, I know Shake was looking at there as 90, like 92 area in time. We have this Mercy MRCY, a nice little post earnings flag here, getting tight through this like 67, 68 area. We have this POR utility name. Again, we're talking about utilities being strong, hitting new all-time highs. Would not be surprised that this thing, will kind of follow, what the sector's been doing. And we got three more. We got this AVB, another REIT name, setting up this 248 versus 240 for now. Then we have this KR still in this little earnings flag. I know we talked about this last week. I forgot which member was looking at it through. I believe it was like 56.5, and now it seems to be, if they're going to be buying, it's going to be 58 versus 54. And then trade of the week for Shake was this SEDG through, it seems to be this 340 level. So that should Evan, if you want to jump in and go over a couple of things you're looking at, and we can go over, of course, all the member ideas.
Cool. Yeah. So, I'm kind of staying a little bit hands off right now, just letting things set up, because I think a lot of stocks are a bit extended right now. But a couple that I'm looking at that I really like to set up. The first one is this Visa. That's starting to flag here after a really big move off of support. Would love to see a little more consolidation here, but kind of trading through that between 220 and 214. So it's giving us a nice little low risk opportunity there. I think like in the short term, you can kind of start, you can see like 230, 240 as your profit taking area. So if you're risking 5, aiming to make 20, that's a pretty nice 4-to-1 risk reward there. Another one that I really like is the CVS, forming a pretty textbook cup and handle at highs. Looking to buy this one possibly through 110 in time versus that recent pivot at 106. So risking $4, pretty good tight risk there. The more consolidation here, the better. Another one I think is on the shakedown, but I really like is this EMR. Few layers of probability here, obviously pretty macro resistance level, tight flag last week, sitting above all the moving averages, decreasing volume over the last few days, which is what I like to see, that like volatility kind of start to contract. So I would love to see some volume come in through that 99 level, and then push through that psychological 100 triple digit level. Other than that, just kind of waiting for some things to set up. I like this LH, Laboratory Corp. This kind of, I'm looking for the eventual move through that 280 area in time, but I'm liking how it's putting in some higher pivots here, kind of trading near all the moving averages. And then we got some member game plans here. So Kusha had a few of them. He's looking at CSL 251 Blue Sky Breakout.
Amazing. It's very good.
Yep. Looks very, very good. The volume is a little thin. It's like right on the limit of what we want, 360K average. I personally, I look for like 5, 6, 700K. But these work too. It's a nice setup. WCC through 134. Very similar setup.
Both look very good. WCC.
Yep. Looking really good. And then he's got SITM that he's waiting for a little more consolidation and a slight pullback. So obviously big move off of support 2 weeks ago. And then this week, just kind of digesting that. I would agree. I think it could use a little bit more time, but yeah, through that 254 area looks solid. 254, 255. Yeah. Eric had a ROP through 470 versus 455. Yeah, nice little flag there.
It's great, yeah. A lot of like, and it's similar to one of these bases. This is try to rush. He's not rushing this now, but it's more so. It's like when these names pull in, it's like we try to find them. Like we get too antsy here, and then it's like it really takes these. Like when I talk about like the time, like it just needs to take up space in the chart. And now it looks so much better that 470 versus 460, $10 risk. In a $460 stock, you're talking about 2% risk. That this is like all day long the stuff that we want to focus on.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you kind of just flash back to some of the pre-market calls we had a few weeks ago, where a lot of the setups where they just needed more time, they need to base out. This is exactly what we wanted. So it's very easy to get chopped up in that February. January to mid-March, you can get chopped up in all that stuff. When in reality, if you kind of just waited, took a little vacation, came back, you start to see some great setups. So yeah, we're definitely seeing some really good stuff here. Abby's got a few of them. She's looking at IT 297. Definitely kind of seeing that little cheat level, some tight action over those last 3 days. I think the real level is going to be like that 300, 301 that it really needs to break. But I could definitely see like a starter position through that little 297, 298, and then adding through 302, all of it versus 289, that pivot. Next one she's looking at is HUM 440.
This was just one, like, I know there was another member looking at this one. Kills me to think, but it was like it was in this area where this was obviously before this gap down. But it was like maybe this day where he wanted to like sneak in versus whatever the pivot was. And it was like, just wait for 470. And I think, and I see like what, this looks great, but again, it's like best case, you're going to get that run to 470. And maybe if you really, if you were going into this saying, okay, I want to start a position here. I want to start very light. This is like a feeler. I want to buy through 440. I'm going to really give it versus 420 or versus, even call it 400, very light, with the expectation that I'm going to add through 470 and I want to have good stock and I'll do perfect here. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think if it's just like I want to buy 440 and like trade inside this range, where like eventually this 470 breakout should be, a pretty big one. This is a pretty significant measured move. This would set it to kind of like $600. That makes sense. But I think if it's just that trade to 470, I would probably just not waste the time and just focus on buying through that spot.
Yeah, I would almost kind of look at it only on a weekly chart. I think on a weekly chart, you kind of have that clear macro setup that, like you said, you might want to start the position here with a really loose stop under 400 for the eventual buy through all-time highs where we can really see a nice move in time. Because obviously it's been, that 470 level is pretty important. It's been there for a year and a half, 2 years. So eventually it'll go through that level. So to have like a good price in this area lightly and then move on later. But that's something that you have to put into your own perspective too. Like, don't expect this to go to 500 tomorrow. So you have to be patient with it and treat it more like a long-term trade than just a swing trade over the next few days.
And that's where it's like, and that's kind of where it's like, it's almost easier to wait for the 470, because for it to get to 470, set up at 470, start to push up through it, come back under 470, and then really start to go, that could be 6 months from now. And you're going to just tire yourself out watching it every day, like expecting this to be the day that it's just going to go, where in reality, this could take 6 more months before it's really going to clear that 470 area and start drifting up, towards, those newer highs. That's even like with LMT, some of these names where, this could take however long. And then it's like a matter of like a couple days that it has this amazing move. And it's like, just being involved at this point is like often so much easier than trying to get in here, hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a month and a half, and then have the conviction to add here, where like this part is just going to often like trip you up, where it's just like, if you could just catch this part.
Yeah, and you're probably getting shaken out on that red candle too. That's right before the breakout, like before that breakout week right there on LMT. Like you might be getting shaken out on that one as well. So I agree.
Still just.
Yeah. The other one she's looking at is MA MasterCard through 352. Very similar setup to Visa. Nice flag here. But something that also kind of I'm not super hungry about this Visa is it's sitting in the middle of the macro range, similar to MasterCard. It's between the wide range between 400 and 310. So it's like, it's kind of a flip of a coin, whether it's just going to push higher or is it going to kind of make a higher low from here and then head lower. So I'm not, to me, it's not an A+ setup. It's an A setup that could have some potential, but definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, with both those, it's like you almost kind of need like, it's like you need to look in here. It's like, this is your entry and you want like that run back to highs. Like that's like the goal.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to sell it up. Yeah, let me just show these lines up just so if you're following. So, we're expecting, like for this entry, we're expecting this entry to work its way back to here. That's like the goal. But like we saw in this case, it's like it's $900, everybody out, and then it eventually gets there. But it's not gonna be like a straight run where like even this name, maybe it does push through up this 360 enough to get people in and it runs to 370. That's amazing. But then it has like that shakeout, that knee-jerk move. And that's what's going to eventually propel it. It's not going to just be like that kind of move back to high.
Yeah.
But I think that wants to keep on the radar. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, could you mute K? He's making a bunch of noise. Okay, and then we will go to the next one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Got it.
Joe is looking at Dunkin' Donuts, Dnut, 1550.
What is Dunkin'?
Or Krispy Kreme, sorry. DNUT is it's Krispy Kreme. Yes. Okay, so he's looking at 1550.
This would be. I hate these sheet names. I see the base. I know Shape would probably like this, like this recent IPO up to this level. For me, it would be a path. I'm more so I'd rather just wait for buying through here and catching that follow through than, you're buying this for 1550. You got to give it a buck. That's you're giving it almost 10%. 5 to 1 is 50. You have to buy this here, hope that it doesn't go to here, and before that happens, get back to here. And I think it's just asking for a lot. Where day one, I don't know. This is not. I don't want to risk 10% day one in this. I would rather, like Cush's name. I'd rather buy 250 versus 240 versus 2%, and it's like a chip shot to make 5 to 1. Where this is like, it's going to be more difficult to.
I agree. Abby's got a few she posted in this chat now. So she's looking at CALA 369. This is kind of like one of those things where it's like we said before, it's like you're not trying to rush into something. Like the market's up, 70 days in a row. This is kind of one of those where it's like, I kind of see what you're looking at, but there's probably more defined things out there.
that
Mhm.
you don't have to risk, buying, whatever 369 versus 347. Best case short term, you're gonna maybe gonna move to here. I'm going back to like this Kush idea where like I'd much rather be this much more defined, way more things in your favor above 200-day near all-time highs, tight risk where that one is just kind of middle of the range, not really as defined, and might be more risk than necessary.
Yeah. She was also looking at ESS 343.
Another REIT name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what was the entry?
343. So basically on the break of that trend line that you drew.
So again, we mentioned before, REITs, a lot of these charts have been setting up. Sector is definitely looking good. It's not very extended, the REIT sector, so it's not like you're chasing energy up here where it's already gone, 50% plus in a month. The REIT sector is still kind of in that range, but it's still kind of viable overall. And a lot of these REIT names are kind of the same thing where they're not extremely extended. This is a nice little pattern that's developed here. Buying 343 versus 330, risking 2-3%. Definitely looks very good, and you can realistically catch 30 points of this to this retest, at least 3-1 with the 200-day acting as support. So definitely looks good.
Yeah. Next one we got Daisy. She's looking at SEE 7050. I think in time just needs a little consolidation after that big move on Friday.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's like if this was to go today, I wouldn't be enthused to buy this 70 versus like people call it 66, but say maybe 67. But if this was to tighten up a little bit, and this is a blue sky breakout, definitely looks good.
I agree. Next one we got VNO 47.
Another REIT name. Again, we can see this pretty big base. I guess it's not above its pandemic highs yet still. So this is the only thing where when we're talking about REITs, this might be one that I would avoid. Again, amazing base. So, this is great, but the fact that it still hasn't been able to really reclaim its pre-pandemic prices means that this is maybe going to be kind of like the dog in this REIT space. And I'm not sure like what this company is focusing on specifically, if it's like mall, let's say office, retail, merchant. I mean, I just think for the other REIT names like that ESS, same space, this is reclaimed the pandemic highs, it's above it, where what was the ticker again? How did I type it down?
VNO.
Yeah, this one is below the pandemic highs, still has a lot of ground to reclaim, and you can even see this in the energy sector, where think of like SLB, still significantly below, or it's kind of just getting back to just above the pre-pandemic highs. So this is pre-pandemic, this is post, still kind of same area, very weak.
Yeah. Moral of the story is definitely look for the leaders versus the laggards, that's for sure.
Look at energy.
Versus Chevron is fucking.
And Chevron got smoked, rightfully so, but has reclaimed it and is now through it. And this is a much, I'm not saying ESS is going to do this, but if it was SLB below pre-pandemic or CVX back near as highs, I'm going to take CVX. And like with these REITs, ESX close to those highs and pushing through it. This other one not close, not even halfway there. It's got so much more pressure on it than it's just easier to focus on the ones that are stronger chart wise.
Abby is also looking at ROK 280, targets 350, but first resistance is this 290.
It seems like we're looking at a lot of these like utility type names, a lot of REITs, which is good. Definitely see like the base that she's looking at. You can see like this 250 was like kind of a lot of the sand here. So I definitely see. What was it, 280?
Yeah.
280 versus like 270. I think definitely makes sense, and you could probably catch, that move to kind of the 200-day, at least in the short term, like that could be like a realistic short-term move, which
Yeah. I think this is also one that maybe like I wouldn't look to buy today, like you were kind of saying. Like if it went today, it's literally the third day up off support. I would rather it sort of consolidate here or even form a higher pivot for that third attempt through that level. Just like we were saying, we really want to see the names that have these large drawdowns like they did, from December or January to now, they have to digest that really big move, so from 360 to 260, we really want to see that consolidate and digest that, push out all the short sellers and all that kind of stuff, and wait for that third or fourth attempt through that new base that it's forming. So I think there's some opportunity here, but I think patience will play a lot for this one.
Yeah.
Daisy's looking at EW. I have this one on my list too. EW 114.
okay.
So
Yeah,
so like this one's kind of on that third attempt through that level versus the obviously completely different companies, but just chart wise, it's got that 1, 2, and then third attempt. Probably another one that I wouldn't buy today if it went, just because it's again 3 days up off the support. I was actually looking to sneak into this one on Friday because it had that inside day at support on Thursday, but it kind of just gapped up over my entry and didn't give me a shot, the usual. So yeah, I'm waiting for like an inside day or just some tight sideways action on this one. I think it looks great through 114.
Great.
Abby's looking at another one, HCA pivot through 262. So kind of trying to buy off support. Nice shakeout on Friday. I mean, if it can definitely continue to push higher, I think that's an interesting level. And yeah, like you just mapped out, it's like a previous resistance level. So sort of like a sneaky buyback type of trade.
Yeah.
Like 263-ish.
This is kind of like when it's about like Humana, where it's again, when it gets back to 470, we would expect this like LMT type breakout, like through 470 and off the races. But it's like you almost sometimes have to like realize that like this could be the reality of like it's going to push through, it's going to push through, push some new highs, but then it has to kind of like settle back in, and that's when like we forget about it. Like we'll focus on it, that 265 buy, it doesn't work, we get stopped out like on Friday, we move on from the name. 2-3 weeks go by, the same kind of pulls in, and then it turns back up at 265, and then it is falling off. And that's some of those things that with Humana is that we just want to be aware that sometimes these are those initial breakouts, and it's not that like just vertical move higher. But yeah, I see what you know. And what my point of that is like the fact that it has done this, if it can take out this 265 and eventually push to 270, then it probably does just drift higher with time. And we don't want to take these off our radar just because like it's not a hard level now that it's like a softer one since it's broken here. It still could be even better now because it's showing us that it's ready to kind of push through those areas in time.
Yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on. Daisy's got another one. She's looking at MTB 187. M as in monkey. MTB. B is in boy.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, this weekly chart looks awesome. I really like the weekly one.
Yeah, so the financial names still kind of So again, still kind of dead center, like dead smack in the range, but again, through this 102 sector-wise, definitely looks great. And this MTB, it's relatively stronger than the sector as a whole because it's basically flagging your all-time highs when the sector itself is dead smack in the middle of its relevant range. So if the financial sector wants to get back towards highs and eventually break out, it's safe to assume that like this name is probably going to be one of the first ones to go. Then like whereas like Goldman is nowhere near this breakout, where MTB is kind of right up here still. So it's like MTB will probably be at, what is this, 50, 210, 220, 215 before like Goldman's even retesting its, prior all-time high. So
yeah.
Well,
next one, we got FedEx, FDX 228, 229 area from Abby.
if you're going to be in like the shipping space, I think UPS, even though I'm a little more biased, I think just chart wise, this is just a much more defined pattern, near all-time highs. Same like we said before, like the what the hell was it? HCA, like it pushes through the level, but it's not really ready. We kind of saw this with UPS, had amazing earnings, it faded the move, and now it's continuously showing us that like it wants to push through this level. It didn't fade this, put a new lower low and come back near support. It's showing the buyers are still there. That if it's FedEx or UPS, I think you might be better off with the UPS than FedEx. That is just more close. This is one where it's like if this is a topping pattern, this is where it's continuously breaking support and putting in new lows. That is more so kind of confirming, and you can see the 200 kind of curving over where it's like we want it to trade higher, but the chart's kind of showing us it's trying to kind of like H and roll lower. Where with UPS, we're seeing it continuously kind of bang on